Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, the podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. Today's guest is Carleigh. She's from California, and she has been a cosplayer since about 2009, and she's grown to love cosplay more and more ever since. She loves being able to bring characters to life and crafting something beautiful and geeky and having a wonderful community around her that loves stuff just as much as she does. She's into a bunch of different fandoms that we're going to talk about today. Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, Carleigh.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you. I mean, it's been a little while going back and forth, but we finally got
We
together.
got here. I'm very proud of us. We finally found a day that worked.
Yay! Now, as I said, you're into a bunch of different fandoms, but as I do with most of my guests on the podcast, I ask, how would you describe what fandom is to you?
Fandom to me is it's a grouping of people who all love the same thing, and it's just growing. It's, oh my gosh, I'm gonna sound like an idiot now, but it's just digging deeper and deeper into a specific genre that you love, or a specific show or comic book, and really growing as a community into loving this specific show. And in that you become fans, and it just grows and grows. And I kind of view it as like a fan filled kingdom almost per each show or comic book or whatever. I mean, that's kind of how I've always viewed fandom.
Okay. That's always a good way to view it. I just pictured for a moment the Greek city states, and there's the city state of like Game of
Yep.
Thrones, and but then you've got to go to war against a different fandom, and or maybe you merge and have alliances. Like, let's
And they
have an
do.
alliance with the Vikings fandom.
Yep, and they do. And you've got Lord of the Rings in there, and you can have all of the alliances, all of the wars,
All of the
war
wars,
of the
all of the
fandoms.
treaties. Now, when I send over my little survey to everyone to ask about what fandoms they're into, it sometimes it can get a little unwieldy. Sometimes people send over a list of like 100 different things, and thankfully you didn't. You said, that there's so much that you could go into, but you really didn't want to like send over that
Yeah,
much.
I didn't want to send you like 300 things.
So what fandoms are you into without taking the rest of this hour or so to just go over that?
You know what? I'd have to stick with my favorites, especially since, you don't want to spend 3 hours just talking, just listing off names. So
Right.
I'd say, for as far as like an anime goes, Naruto is one of my favorite animes because it was the first anime I ever watched when I was younger. So it's just stuck with me and been one of my favorites. I'm really, really into this show that Rooster Teeth produced called RWBY. It's got kind of a wonky animation, but it is an amazing tale. Got great characters, amazing storylines. And when I sent you a list, I tried to pick one or two per each genre, like as
Hmm.
books or anime or shows or anything like that. So as far as books go, one of my favorite book series, and it's actually a really not well-known book series, is called the Mistborn trilogy, and it's by Brandon Sanderson, and it's really, really a neat story. Um,
Okay. Well, let's start off with your first one, Naruto, because I know Naruto. Before we started recording, we were kind of riffing on Naruto a little bit.
you have to. I mean, come on, it's Naruto.
Right. Now, how did you get into Naruto?
When I was younger, I my cousin lived in England, and so we'd talk every once in a while. And he actually called me one day and was like, "You have to turn on the TV. Naruto's on." And I was like, okay." So I turned it on, and I just spent like they were doing a marathon, and I literally spent like 2 days glued to the television set just watching them stream. It was pretty pathetic, but I was hooked ever since.
Do you remember what part of the show you started in on? Was it the beginning, or did you get it somewhere like in the middle?
No, it was the first episode. I guess,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I started from the very first episode. I mean, obviously they had been out for a while, so I didn't just start when the series came out. But yeah, no, I started from the very first episode.
Okay, fantastic. Well, what drew you to Naruto? Like when you sat down and watched it for those 2 days, what was it? What was about it that really drew you in?
I really liked how they had almost a different spin on the whole ninja thing, because I mean, right out the bat, you have this loud, annoying kid in a bright orange jumpsuit who thinks he's going to become a ninja. Yeah, right? Right, bright orange. That's perfect color for a ninja. And then you've
Bright
got,
bright orange and blonde
yeah,
hair,
right,
yes.
blonde hair. And then you've got some chick with like bright pink hair who's crazy loud. And it's just like, all right, well, they're never going to make it. And then you have their sensei, and he's hilarious. And I grew to love these characters. I mean, let's be honest here. I really didn't like some of these characters until later in the series, but I just grew to really appreciate and love the characters and love the storyline, and it went so deep, and I just couldn't stop watching it, honestly.
Awesome. Now, who's your favorite character in the Naruto world? Because in the Naruto world there is a large cast of characters. So I'm not going to say just give me one, but who do you love the most?
Oh man, I'm glad you didn't just say to pick one because that would be really difficult. Um, I guess my top three, if I can do like a top three, it would be Kakashi. Just because I don't know why, I've always loved Kakashi. He's such a great character. He's hilarious. He's such a good sensei to the kids, and well, I mean, he's kind of a jerk, but in a good way. Itachi is definitely one of my top favorites, and I loved him ever since the beginning. Even when he went and killed his whole clan, and then when you found out why he did everything he did, he became this really, really deep character that I think was misunderstood and purposefully misunderstood throughout the entire series until you got to the point where you really learned who he was and why he did the things that he did. And because of everything he went through and because of everything he had to do, I just made him such a deep and beautiful character. Plus, his brother was super annoying. So, I mean, if you had to pick one. And for my third favorite, I think I would have to pick Hinata, just because she's one of those characters that is so shy and meek, but she knows what she wants and she knows who she loves. And when the people who she loves are threatened, she becomes so strong. And it's one of those things that it doesn't matter how shy you are or how weak you seem. When the things that you love or the people who you love are threatened, you can become, ridiculously strong and beat the crap out of your cousin.
Absolutely. I always loved that storyline within that clan of ninjas,
The
nah,
Hugas.
I'm forgetting. The Hyugas.
Hmm.
And between am I gonna get it wrong?
Neji, yes. You're close.
Neji and Hinata,
Yep.
and it's like that power dynamic and the way that their clan is run is so interesting to watch and just see it play out and see Hinata evolve over the course of time, like
Hmm.
in the anime. I know for me, my favorites were always I loved Hinata. She was always one of my favorites, and I really loved Shikamaru.
Oh my gosh, I love Shikamaru. He's great. See, there are too many characters to love. You can't just pick favorites.
Yeah, and you can't even confine it to just like one village because
No.
then you have all the expanding like when you start expanding outwards and you have like the Sand Village
Yep.
and
Yep. I love Gara and Tamari.
now what was your favorite I can't say season because Naruto doesn't really have
You're
seasons,
right.
but what was your favorite storyline? What was the one when it aired or when you're watching it you're like this is the defining like storyline?
I know I already mentioned it, but honestly, it was the whole part where it revealed Itachi, and through the whole thing where he'd been, getting Sasuke to hate him, and the whole thing with his clan and the family, and that I was glued to whatever I was watching it on at the time, and I just was like, my jaw was dropped to the floor, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So I mean, that was one of my favorites for sure because nobody really saw it coming. It was one of those things that Itachi was always a villain, and you never really knew why he snapped. And then it was
Hmm.
all kind of revealed, and it was like, that, see, Sasuke's been a jerk this whole time.
It comes down to Sasuke being a
It
jerk.
does. It really does. I'm glad that they kind of grew him up towards the end, at least from what I can tell.
The one that always sticks with me is the storyline where, it happens much earlier, where Shikamaru has been promoted kind of to like that rank of like leader, and I think they've captured Sasuke at this point, and they're leaving, so he gets like the group of 7
hmm
or 6 to go after them, and each of those people have their own individual fights,
Yep.
and that storyline was
The one
amazing
where
between.
Choji turns into a butterfly. That one
Yes.
was pretty sweet. I was watching it and I was like, what in the world is going on? Why does he have wings all of a sudden?
Yes, that storyline, because everyone had like their moment to shine and be out there and represent, and it had like this good solid storyline for I don't know how many episodes it lasted over, because
Million.
with that yeah, because they did get not Dragon Ball Z-esque, but they did push it for like how long the fights would last.
Yeah, they definitely did. They didn't, yeah, you're right. They didn't get quite as bad as Dragon Ball Z, but they definitely pushed it. Which, looking back on it now, it was such a great arc and it was such, everybody got their own moment and I
Hmm.
really appreciated that. So it did last forever, but I was kind of glad it did because you got to know each character a little more and got to know their storylines and who they're fighting for, what they're fighting for, and you really got to see the sense of oh no, I can't think of the word, but you really got to see the sense of like camaraderie between the
Hmm.
characters, and I think that's really important.
Right, because for the most part they're split up into teams of 3,
Yep.
and you don't really get to see them work together or more than that group of 3 until that moment, really.
Yep. I mean, you got to see them fighting against each other in like the tuning exams and everything, but until that moment, they weren't ever really a full team as like a village was. Um, they were always separated.
Right. Now, we talked about our favorite characters. Is there a character in the show that you feel is underrated from the fandom? Maybe the fandom doesn't appreciate them as much as you think they should be appreciated.
Oh man. Um, That's a really good question. And I know I should have thought of this far before now, and now I'm not going to be able to come up with a great answer. Honestly, I think okay, this is going to be it's a really random character, but I think Zetsu was one of the most underrated characters because he was hilarious. And
Okay.
especially because he had that like multiple personality thing going on. And so one half of him would be like, "Hey, we should eat that guy." And the other part of him would be like, "Nah, not right now." And it's just like he was always in the background doing these like little like just talking to himself and nobody really noticed or nobody really cared, but I always thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, there's definitely with Naruto being having so many characters in the series, sometimes I gravitated towards a few that I always felt were very underrated or like overlooked, or maybe
Mhm.
they should have gotten more things. And Choji was always one of those that I felt bad, especially
Mm.
that almost that whole team with the exception of Shikamaru, Choji and the
You know,
the Ino, those two I felt like they didn't get as much love. And then and this the other guy's going to escape me, the bug guy. Um,
oh man, I should know this.
but those three,
We
the
fail
bug.
as fans.
I'm just going to say bug guy, and then Choji and Ino are like the 3 characters where I they get love like in those filler episodes that went on for a really long time, and they kind of expanded on it, but you don't really see a lot of people talking about them too much.
Yeah, you're right. You don't. They're not very I mean, obviously there are people who love them as characters, but they were never really they weren't Sasuke, Naruto and Sakura. So,
Uh-huh.
no, you're definitely right. They weren't very talked about. I mean, Shikamaru was pretty much universally loved.
Yes.
And Ino was just as annoying as Sakura, except she was just not in it, not around as much. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why people didn't really care about her. But honestly, I always, while watching the show, when while they were still getting and tuning and everything, I always shipped Ino and Choji. I don't know why, but I always wanted them to end up together.
Yes, I really did want that to happen too. That was something where I was like, that should happen,
It should.
but I don't know if it does
They
in the
didn't.
future.
Nope.
No.
Nope. She ended up with Sai.
See, and I don't know who that is.
He replaced Sasuke on their team, on Team 7 later in the series.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
See, at a certain point, I stopped, um, and I blame maybe life, curse life for having me to stop, watching certain things. Or at that point, I had gone through all of the all the filler episodes to where they picked back up with the regular Like now, Naruto is continued from just ignore like those 200 episodes
Yeah.
that we did that were filler. Now we're continuing the actual story.
Yep.
And then I watched Shippuden maybe for like 15 or 20 episodes, but then again the long fights and dragging things on and adding more to the story, which I love story, but at a certain point you really need to maybe like rein it in a little bit.
Yeah, seriously. And I mean, you only have so much time in your personal life. And, if you're going to want to watch new things, you can't devote 24/7 to trying to finish Naruto because it really would take that
Right.
to watching every episode. And I mean, I'm still trying. I'm trying to finish it out just because it's one of my favorites.
Right. Now Naruto has finished. I believe it's finished or it's moved on to his son, correct?
Yeah, it's moved on to his kids now,
Okay.
I
And are
believe.
they going to do a series with the kids, or are they just I know that like they had a movie come out.
Yeah, they had a movie come out, and I know they're still releasing episodes, but I don't know how far that's going to go or if they're planning on ending it anytime soon. I mean, I've heard rumor and I've heard talk that they're going to continue it, and now it's going to be all about Naruto's son and daughter, but I don't know if that's accurate at all.
Gotcha. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and
Yeah,
see.
we'll find out. We'll find out.
Uh Now, if you were going to say to somebody that's listening to this podcast has not watched an episode of Naruto, is it something that people should get into? Is it something where you would say, well, watch from point A to point B and skip stuff and can pick it up? Like, what would you say to a person who has no clue about Naruto?
I would tell them that it is a really good show. It gets a lot of crap for being one of those like mainstream animes, but honestly, it's a really well done show. It's got great characters, it has great storylines. You really do become attached to these characters and these people. I would say give it the first season. I got my husband to watch it because he wasn't really an anime person, and so I was like, all right, sit down, watch the first season because I think the first couple seasons are on Netflix. So I was like, all right, sit
Hmm.
down, watch the first couple seasons. If you hate it, you can stop, but just give it a while. And he loved it, and it's just one of those things that I think everybody should give it a chance. And if you don't like it, if it's not your thing, that's fine. You'll find something that is your thing. But it's one of those animes that I think is pretty much universally loved. Like I always run into huge Naruto fans, and it's one of those animes from my childhood. Like I've loved it for years. It's always been a favorite of mine. So, give it a chance. Watch a season or two. See if you can get into it. It's definitely worth it if you do.
Awesome. And I have to definitely agree. At least give it, I would say almost give it 20 episodes. It's not that much heavy lifting
It's
because
not.
each episode is only like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's only 20 minutes. It really wouldn't take very long. You could span it out over a couple days. Just watch
mhm.
an episode here or there. Give it a good chance, and I think it's definitely worth it.
Awesome. So, another of those fandoms that you mentioned is a book series, which I'd never heard about. So, you're going to have to carry this portion of the podcast.
All right.
This portion of the podcast brought to you by Carleigh.
All right, here we go.
And okay, it's a book series called, is it The Mistborn or just Mistborn?
Yeah, it's the Mistborn series. It's actually a trilogy. Um,
Okay.
so it's pretty interesting. It's by Brandon Sanderson, and what I really appreciated about this series is that first of all, there are three books in it. It's Mistborn is the first book, Then there's The Well of Ascension, and the third book is called The Hero of Ages.
Okay.
So, what I really appreciated about this book is it's very different from a lot of fantasy books out there. Like, it really took a new twist. It isn't elves and knights and stuff like that. It's it's more about you start reading it, and it's about this girl, and she's kind of invisible, and she just hides in the background, and um you find out that these characters, that the certain people in within this world can use this power called allomancy, which basically, if they ingest certain metals, they can do what they call burning them, and it gives them certain abilities. Now, each character is usually only born with one of these abilities. um,
Okay.
and it's a lot to explain, so I'm sorry if I'm sounding like an idiot
Oh,
here, but it's like burning tin helps you hear better, or different stuff like that. And so, really getting into it, there are certain characters who are born with the ability to burn all of these specific metals, and then they get all of these abilities, and they're called Mistborn. So it's set in this world where it's being ruled by what they call the Lord Ruler, and he's ruling them with an iron fist, and people are starving, and it's not a good place to be. And people have been trying to rise up against him, and they just fail left and right. And then you meet this very tiny young girl who ends up being a Mistborn, and these people surround her, and they all try to make like one final rise against the Emperor. And it's a lot of information, and it is so much into the book series, but the powers that they have, and the abilities that they have, and the way the book is written, and the characters, and there aren't, until later in the series, there aren't any like awkward love triangles. I mean, even later in the series, there's no awkward love triangles. Like, it's very, there is a love interest here or there, but it's very reserved, and it's definitely more about the storyline, and more about the characters, and having to overcome what they have to overcome, and trying to free the people, than it is anything about, goofy love and stuff like that. So
okay.
I really, really appreciated the way he wrote it. And it's, like I said, it's a very underrated series, but it's absolutely fantastic.
How did you get into the series? Where did you find it? Was it something that someone recommended to you? Did you stumble across it after reading like a different book series?
My aunt is actually a huge reader like I am. Like, we love reading books, and she found this author, Brandon Sanderson. He's written other books too. Like, this isn't his only series. He also did a couple series called Warbreaker, Atlantis, and The Way of Kings. So I mean, he's a pretty well-known author, and she found this series and read it and recommended it to me, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I think I've read the whole series about 3 times now. So
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty bad, but I really liked it, and my family did too when they got into it.
Now, what makes it appealing to you? What specifically is it where it's like this is a book that not only am I going to read multiple times but recommend to people?
What I really liked about it is that the main character, and there are a lot of books out now where the main character is like quiet and timid, and isn't very good looking, and is just kind of quiet in the corner. But this one is different in that, and I mean, in those books later, like, the character becomes this. She's quiet, and she doesn't really know anything, but like, instantly she's an amazing fighter, or she's really good at this or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And in this book series, this girl has gone, her family's abandoned her, her family's dead, and she's alone in the world, and you find her in this you find her working for these criminals, because like, she can play with people's emotions as one of her powers, or as one of the things that she can do, but she doesn't really know how she does it. She has no idea people have this power, and she has no idea she has the power. All she knows is sometimes she can feel something inside her, and can kind of touch and play with people's emotions. So she doesn't really know how to use this power, how to do anything, until she's taught later on. And it takes her so long to get to the point where she becomes this brilliant fighter, or so good at what she does. She has to work at it. And what I love about her as a character is that throughout all of this, she's not sitting there whining like, I don't want to have to do it. I don't want to. Like, she's like, this is what I have to do, and I'm going to do it. And she works at it, even if it's killing her. She just gives it everything she has to try to save the people that she loves, and I can really respect that. She
That is
she wasn't born with this perfect skill. She had to hone it. She had to work really hard at it. She doesn't think she's some hero. She's just trying to do what she thinks is best.
absolutely, and that's something where you do have the book series, like, and I'm just going to pick on one of them, like the Hunger
Yep.
Games, where Katniss does have the hunting experience, the
Mm-hmm.
background, but and I think it's more displayed in the movies because obviously they're cutting out a lot of stuff
Right.
where she goes from being a hunter and being good with a bow to being really like in and it's more prominent in the second and third ones where she's getting into like leadership and combat
Yep.
and tactics and leading a squad like that. And that, I think that's the worst part for me, was the third book of that
Oh my
series
gosh, I know.
where she's leading like this tactical squad into the city,
Yep.
and it's like I couldn't see that. That's the one part of it where it's like where it was just hard for me to grasp, like Katniss Hunter, Katniss leader of tactical squad.
For me, the hardest part to grasp about that book was the ending. And it to this day, the last book makes me so angry. Because throughout this entire series, like she never wanted to be some hero. She just wanted to save her sister. That is all she
Right.
wanted to do throughout this entire book, was to save her family, because she was the only one in the family who was an adult. And even if she wasn't an adult, she was the only one like trying to save her family. And by the time, and I read the books before I saw the movies, and by
Mm-hmm.
the time I got to the third book and I read the third book, I wanted to burn it. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like she ends up, for half the book, she ends up sitting in a corner and just like having a mental breakdown, which is understandable with everything she's been through. But then all of a sudden you get to the end and she's happy with kids in a field. Like, no, there's no way that that character would have brought kids into this horrible life. Like, she never wanted that throughout the entire series, but all of a sudden, flash forward 20 years and her kids are frolicking among the flowers. And that, to me, I was just like, nah, that's not believable. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember getting to the end of that book, and I sat on the edge of the bed. I told my wife, I was like, I don't really know what I feel about this because it's such a departure from what Katniss was at
Right,
that point.
right. They changed her character so much, and the fact that the author killed off so many characters, but didn't actually give them half decent deaths. She was just like, "Oh, this guy got eaten by dogs." The end, or this guy got blown up by, and it's like you shouldn't even focus on it. Like half the characters died, and I had to go back and reread. Like, wait, hold on. What do you mean they're dead? Like I don't remember reading that. Like there was
Right?
there was no, oh, and now he's dead. It's just like, he fell back and got eaten by wolves. Bye. And like moved on. And I just thought it was really, really rushed. And I
Yes.
think that if given the proper time, I think she could have come up with a good story. But the fact that literally everyone in this book series went absolutely crazy, which is definitely possible with everything that they've been through and the PTSD and everything. But the fact that especially Peeta and Katniss went absolutely bonkers, but are now happy and have kids frolicking in the flowers. Like that just to me, I mean, of course you can be happy and you can get past all those things, but the fact that it went from literally sitting in a corner rocking back and forth and being absolutely insane, like needing
Hmm.
mental stability, and then you just flash forward a couple years and everything's fine. Like that to me just seemed really cheap. It seemed to really cheapen the characters.
Now, does the Mistborn, as far as the three books go, how do they handle the main character with her progression?
I think that they handled her progression really well. I mean, like I said, she too goes through so much stuff with friends dying and through battling and being pretty much the only one that can really save it, and trying to figure out what's going on, and through everything and all the mistakes that she makes and everything, just being human and trying to save the world. I think they handled it really, really well, and they made her very believable. She's just some young kid trying to do what she thinks is best. And throughout the whole series, I think they kept that up pretty well. I mean, there were a few times where she just became she seemed to be very uncaring, but it's one of those things that you have to realize that that's been her character since the beginning. Like when her brother like abandoned her, like she had to learn, okay, I can't feel these things. I have to know everyone around me is going to betray me. And so she has this attitude, but it's an attitude that she's been taught. It's not just I'm going crazy, I'm going to ignore life for a while. Like, you know, it's nothing like that. She doesn't ever give up. She's fighting throughout the entire series, and I think it's really fantastic the way it was done.
Awesome. I am going to have to put that on my reading list to check it
You
out.
should. It's worth it.
I've had so many great people talk to me about different book series, and it's one of the things that I love is getting to dive into different series and check them out. So definitely going to have to add this to my list.
It's worth it. And even if you don't like it, that's fine too. But I mean, at least giving the first book a good read is definitely worth it.
Now, the last fandom that you had mentioned of your many
Of my
fandoms
mini,
that
yes.
we're going to talk about is a show that I've heard about, I've not watched, and I actually talked to a different guest about it, I believe, on a different episode that hasn't even come out yet.
Awesome.
And it's called RWBY, but it's spelled RWBY,
Yep.
which threw me off. I was like, okay, I don't get how you're getting Ruby out of that, but
I can explain
okay,
how. I can tell you
okay,
how. Um, so basically what it is it's this it starts out you meet these characters and they're at an academy. It teaches them to be hunters and huntresses because in this world they have these things called Grimm, and they're basically like, I guess, big monsters, and they're styled after different animals, but they're big like half skeletal monsters, and they're like preying on citizens. And so these people can train to be hunters and huntresses to take these things down to protect, protect the world. And so when they put the teams together, the academy chooses the leader of the team and then the rest of the people that go on the team, and the teams get their name from the letters in the team's name, which is the first letter of each teammate's name. So R is for Ruby, and then W is for Weiss, B is for Blake, and Y is for Yang. And so then it spells, Ruby ish,
okay,
ish, not doesn't really spell Ruby, but that's how they go. Plus the leader of their group is called Ruby.
okay,
So, I mean, that's kind of how they got their name. It's mainly about this first team. And Ruby and Yang are sisters. Yang is actually my favorite character of the series. I love her to pieces. She's so loud and obnoxious and just ready to get in a fist fight with everyone. And I love her for it. It's great. Um, what I really did love about this series is it's got such amazing deep characters as well as gorgeous weaponry. I'm a huge weapons fan. Like I love going shooting. I love knives and swords, and I love all kinds of weaponry. And this show really takes weaponry and makes it something even more. Like the main character Ruby, she's got a giant scythe that's also like a sniper rifle.
okay,
Yeah, right. And it's amazing, and it can transform from like a little folded up to the thing into a huge scythe, and it's great. Um, and the animation of the show, it's a little, for some people, it's very difficult to watch, because it's a little more old school. It's kind of that 2D 3D line, and it kind of looks like an old video game style. And like my husband can't watch it because of the animation, and I know a lot of people really struggle with the animation, but it's one of those shows that really has such a great storyline and has such relatable characters that if you can get past the animation, it's absolutely worth it to continue watching.
Now, where do you watch it? Is it on network TV, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's actually on YouTube. The production company who did they're called Rooster Teeth, and they have a YouTube channel. You can watch it on their website. You can watch it on YouTube. They actually have it on Netflix as well, and you can watch it
Okay,
on all these places for free. They also run another pretty popular show called Red versus Blue.
okay,
Yeah, so it's the same company who did Red versus Blue, and now they're coming out with this other show that's a lot different, but it's still absolutely fantastic. And this one is a little more kid friendly. There's no language, there's nothing like that. I mean, there's violence, but it's animated violence. So, I mean, my little siblings love it. So it's one of those that I would absolutely recommend to anybody and everybody if you can get past the animation.
okay. I know that one of the people and this goes way back, probably to almost my college days, maybe forward some, that one of the people that was doing RWBY, Monty Ohm,
Mm-hmm.
I had found his work on YouTube, Dead Fantasy. Have you ever seen that?
I have actually. I've seen clips of it.
Okay, because he had been working, and it's something where he had made the models from Final Fantasy characters
Yep.
and Dead or Alive characters, and they do these epic fights, and it's like a 15 or 20 minute, like each video is like 15 or 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and then he, like, everyone always heaped praises, like, oh, this is amazing, this is great, I can't believe why you're not picked up by somebody, and then I believe Rooster Teeth picked him up,
Yep.
and he had to stop doing Dead Fantasy and started doing RWBY. And then I remember, I think it's like a year or two ago, he passed away.
He did. Oh my gosh, it was heartbreaking.
I think that's the first time where, when you think about it, it's like they're never going to finish something that they had started,
Mm. Yeah.
and it's just one of those things. But I've heard such good things about RWBY, but I'd never really known about it. I
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just hear, like, people, like, reading on Facebook or status updates, like, "Oh, it's so great,"
Right.
or seeing the characters portrayed on, like, on Cosplay or Instagram, and it's like, I have no clue who that is, but it looks so cool.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's amazing. And this, I guess this show was really Monty's baby. And since his passing, I know that Carrie and oh gosh, I'm gonna forget his name. Um, yeah, now I can't even remember. Anyways, the Rooster Teeth is carrying it on, and they know where Monty wanted the show to go, and they're
Okay.
still carrying it on even with him passing, and kind of doing it as a tribute to him as well. And the third season just came out a little while ago. They're actually about to start the fourth season, I think, in October, and it gets really dark and really intense, but in a really good way. And I think that they're really doing, I really hope and think that they're doing Monty justice, because I know the show is his baby. And
Right.
he's been, I guess I'd been reading, I don't know him personally obviously, but I'd been reading that he had been wanting to do a show like this for so long, and when he finally pitched it to them, they were like, yes, let's go. And he poured his heart and soul into it, and you can really see it when you learn about these characters, and you see the weapons design, and you see the powers that they have. And
Hmm.
it's a really wonderful show that I think is kind of underrated by a lot of people, just because they can't handle the animation style of it. Because I have so many friends who are like, "Oh, that looks so cool," and then they get around to watching it and they're like, "Nah, I couldn't handle the animation."
Right. I know that is something that I have an issue with, but that's mostly for, like, video games.
Mm.
Like, if I can't get into the video game because of the animation, it kind of throws off a lot of what I can play or not play.
Right, right. And I mean, that's absolutely understandable. It's just never, it's this style has never been something that's bothered me. I've definitely had games or like animes that the style, it's just, I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this. I don't find it beautiful. I don't think it's great, and it's just not for me. But this is one that the animation style never really bothered me.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to add that again to something to check out as I continue through these podcasts and adding more and more to
Yeah.
what I promise people that I'm going to
Yeah.
watch.
Well, what's great about Ruby is that in the first season, the episodes are, I think they're like maybe 10 minutes long. Like they're
Okay.
really short episodes. I think even the first season, some of them are like 5 minutes, and so you can just throw on an episode, and it could take 5-10 minutes of your time. I mean, you can watch the whole first season in like an hour and a half.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, it's one of those things that if you had like a few hours, you could literally watch the entire series in a good 3 hours, versus any other show you'd get, 4 episodes in. So
Absolutely.
I mean, it's one of those things that it doesn't take a whole lot of time to really try out and see if you'd get into. But I mean, obviously, you promised a lot of people you'd watch a lot of things. So
Hey, I just completed my first promise yesterday. I had promised my episode 5 guest, Andy. Hi, Andy, from California
hi,
also.
Andy.
Um, I had made an arrangement that I was going to finish Dollhouse because I'd never watched it, and I finished it yesterday.
I'm very proud of you.
Yay!
Yay!
Two seasons. Yay! I watched 2 seasons of a TV show.
Such a huge accomplishment.
It
Well
is
done,
sometimes,
sir.
especially now that, TV shows are starting back up since we're recording this in September.
Yeah.
Everything's starting to come back now.
Oh my gosh, I know. I have so many shows I have to like get caught back up on.
Or set up your DVR or whatever to record.
Yeah, I'm actually really bad at my DVR because it skipped a couple episodes, and so my husband and I watched Gotham and Grimm, and we're trying to watch it, and we were watching our recorded episodes, and it skipped like two full episodes, or like only recorded half of them, and we just never got around to watching it, or we didn't want to skip these episodes because it skipped it, so now we're like a full season behind, just because it
Oh,
never picked them up. It was terrible.
see that happens sometimes, and you're like, wait a minute, did something go out of order?
Yep.
And then, or like, I think there's one thing on Netflix, and they had put the episodes out of order
Oh my gosh,
for
yes.
one thing,
They've done
and
that
I
for
was
multiple things and it drives me crazy.
yes, and you're like, wait, what happened? And then like I go on Wikipedia and to find out the episode list, I'm like, what do you mean? Why is it out of order, Netflix?
Yep. Or for like Eureka on Netflix, they only put up season 5. Like there's literally one season on there and it's season 5 and it's ridiculous.
Why put up a season 5 if you don't have the first 4 to go with it?
Seriously. At least put up like season 1 to like get people into the show. Season 5, like just out of nowhere.
That's
It's
crazy.
horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Like I said, for your introduction, and I think I even mentioned it while we were talking, one of the ways I found people or continue to find people sometimes is on Instagram.
Mhm.
And it's all your fault because you were cosplaying one of my favorite characters from Naruto, which is Hinata, and I love Hinata. And what I do before I even send out like even requests to be like, hey, do you want to be a guest? Is I check people's Instagrams to see, well, are you just a Naruto person? Do you have other interests? Like let me just dig in and see how much you're interested in, and you do have a wide range of cosplays, and you've been a cosplayer for it looks like 7 years,
Yeah.
give or take.
Yeah, a little while now.
How did you get into cosplaying?
Honestly, I've always loved, and people ask me this a lot. And the I, the best way I can explain it is I've always been into comic books and TV shows and movies and all things geek. And I when I was younger, I found out like, oh my gosh, they have conventions and people dress up as these characters. Like this is the best thing I've ever seen. And so, like, no, seriously, I'm pretty sure I said that out loud. And so from first seeing like, oh my gosh, people bring these characters to life. Like that's what I want to do. So my first convention, like I mentioned to you in the email, was, or maybe I didn't, I don't know. But my first convention was San Diego Comic-Con back in 2009. Tickets were super easy to get. My ticket was $12. Yeah,
Whoa.
right? Can you believe that?
Okay, we're in the Wayback Machine because let's see here, 2009 is right about the time that the first Iron Man movie is coming out.
Yeah.
And like Batman Begins or Dark Knight is also happening, and so you're getting into that period where they've had like the shows go for like Comic-Con, like maybe Lost had been there,
Yep.
but you're not into full blown like madness at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it was still pretty packed, but from what I see now, and I haven't been back since 2010 was my last year. I went 09 and 2010, but
Okay.
yeah, from what I see now, and I have friends who go every year, it just looks like a madhouse. And my first year there, I thought it was crazy crowded. Like it took forever to walk through the exhibit hall. It was insane. And
Hmm.
now looking at pictures, I'm just like, that's a nope from me. But thank you. Like
Yep.
it looks amazing. Like it's a great convention, and I know so many comic book lovers. This is like their convention, and I think that is amazing. It's just a little too crowded for me. I prefer
Hmm.
a little more understated just because crowds and it's so hot. It's in the middle of July. Like
Right.
Southern California, that's not fun. That's not a good heat. That's not something I want to be out in. Like I guess this past year was like crazy humid too. So I had friends out there who were literally melting and they're like this isn't fun. But I mean, that's how I got into cosplay. It was just I saw that these people were dressing up and bringing these characters to life, and I was like, that's what I want to do. That's how I'm gonna. That's the kind of fan I'm gonna be.
What was your first cosplay?
Oh man, this is really embarrassing. My first cosplay was Misa Misa from Death Note.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was terrible, and I would just I had stuff in my closet, so I had like a little black schoolgirl skirt and like stockings and like a skirt and then like a little fake like corset thing that I wore, and I didn't even do a wig. Like I had blonde highlights in my hair, and I was like, good enough. And it was pretty pathetic. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was pretty bad.
But you just go up from that.
You
Like
do. Yeah,
that's your baseline.
everybody starts somewhere, and it's super important that people know that. Everybody starts somewhere.
So since 2009, you've obviously progressed tremendously based on what I see on your Instagram.
I certainly try.
So how do you pick out the characters that you like? Because that's the question I tend to ask all my cosplayer guests is, do you pick characters that you identify with? Do you pick them based on, hey, that looks cool and I'm just going to go with it? Or is it a mixture of both?
Honestly, for me, it's a mixture of both. Usually, if I'm doing like a cosplay by myself, I'm like I pick a character that I really identify with, like Hinata. I loved Hinata, and I loved her character, and like Yang from RWBY. I identify with Yang, like she is me. We are the same character. Love her to pieces. Cosplay her every single day. Like she's like my top favorite characters to cosplay. But then there are other things where I have, a group of friends who are like, hey, we're doing this cosplay group. Do you want to join us? And I'll be like, sure. And so I'll watch it or I'll read it or whatever they're wanting to do. And even if I don't fully identify with the character, as long as I don't, hate the character, I'll do a cosplay just so that they can have a full group and so that we can, have this really great group going.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously I won't cosplay characters that I really don't like, just because I don't see a point in it. If I don't like the character at least a little, or love the
Hmm.
costume, or love the personality, or something, or even just love the look of the character, I won't cosplay it. It's just not worth it for me.
Do you have a favorite of the ones that you've done? Like, do you have one where you are either most known for, or the one where you're like, this is the most like incredible one that I've done?
Yeah, I mean, so my Hinata ended up being my first Hinata and now my second, but my first Hinata cosplay was literally just stuff I had in my closet. Like I found this lilac long sleeve shirt. I found it on sale for like $2 or something crazy. And I had the headbands and I had the gloves and I had the contacts from a Diablo 3 Demon Hunter cosplay I was trying to put together. And so I had all these different things and I had a wig for her, and I was going to a convention and I was like, what should I wear? I was like, oh, I'll just put Hinata together and finish her out, because it's not a canon costume, but it's something I'd been
Hmm.
wanting to do. I wanted to create a little bit of a different twist to her character. And if I
Right.
already had the stuff, I was like, perfect. So I just kind of put it together thinking, it's fun, something I just, threw together a little bit. And it ended up being my absolute most popular costume by far. And and it's hilarious. There are some costumes that I will spend like weeks hand painting and hand detailing and putting all this thought and effort and research and time and into it, and people will be like, yeah, that's cool, and then like I post Hinata and they're like, oh my god, it's Hinata. And
See, everyone loves Hinata,
I
even though they don't say it.
I love her too. She's one of my favorite characters, and I actually have a few new Hinata cosplays that I plan on doing soon. I'm actually working on an Anbu Hinata right now, trying to figure out the mask. But so I mean, I love her too as a character, and I'm really thankful that other people love her as much as I do. um but yeah, it's definitely funny. And like for me, one of my favorite costumes is Yang from RWBY, just because I identify with her so much. And she's one of my favorite characters to cosplay, and I really love the community that loves the show too. So I mean,
Hmm.
she's one of my favorites to cosplay, even if nobody really knows who she is. And at this past convention, you know what? I'm not going to tell that story because I don't want to give anything away from the show if people haven't seen it. It's too many spoilers. All
Okay.
right, I'm gonna say that. That's too many spoilers on that one.
I've talked to a lot of cosplayers. I've got 20 episodes at this point as we record. We're recording just for posterity's sake, September 22nd.
Hmm.
Um, I've got more people that haven't had their episodes released. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because I found it interesting, of all the people I've had uh, interviewed or coming up with interviews, stuff like that, is your take on the cosplay community, because your take is a little bit different than what I've seen, uh, or having talked with people. It's just a little bit different.
Okay.
What's your relationship been with, as far as the cosplay community goes, from maybe like when you started to how you feel about it now?
Honestly, my first 2 years cosplaying, I really didn't get to know anybody. Because I was younger. I was like 13, 14. Like I was a kid and I was just going with, friends or family and just going to a couple conventions here and there. I
Mm-hmm.
really started getting into the community and meeting people about 2, 3 years ago at Long Beach Comic Con. And and honestly, from that moment when I actually started coming out of my shell more and actually talking to people, I was welcomed with open arms. Like I got to meet so many amazing cosplayers and amazing photographers. And since then, as I've been getting more and more into the community and just really, hanging out with people and getting to know them more and creating friendships, I've really seen that there are some amazing parts of their community. But that being said, a lot of people a lot of people view the community as everybody else is their competition. A lot of people view it, and it makes me so sad that they do, but a lot of people see everybody else as competition and they feel like they have to be better and they have to bring other people down and point out the flaws and how they aren't good enough so that it builds them higher. And that's me. I hate that part of the community and I really try to stay away from the toxic people who do that, who, say, "Oh, I'm not getting the attention I deserve," and stuff like that, when it really should it's a hobby. Like the people who are cosplay famous, they're, in the community, they're absolutely famous and good for them for getting all the followers that they have and good for them for getting this reach. But outside in the real world, nobody knows who they are, and you have to remember that. Like, and I think it's great for people who have a million followers and for people who do this and become so successful at it. I think it's amazing and good for them and I applaud them and I know all the hard work it takes to get to where they are. But follower count really doesn't define how good you are or who you are, because I have people who I follow who have maybe 100 followers and they are some of the most amazingly talented people I've ever seen. They can create armor out of nothing and it looks like it's real, and they're beautiful people and amazingly talented, but they only have a handful of people who follow their work. And so there are a lot of good parts of the community. There really are. And if you can get to the good people, there's amazing parts and they can welcome you with open arms and they can really, really further you as a person. They can teach you things, they can further your skills, and they can really make the community amazing. And on the other hand, there are people who really are just toxic and just are there to cause drama and cause trouble and try to bring other people down to make themselves look better, and that's always a problem. And I mean, you have that anywhere in any community, but I feel like it's pretty big right now in the cosplay community. There are a lot of people doing that.
I have noticed, and it's been probably within the past month, as I've been subscribing to, every time I get a guest that comes on, I subscribe to their Insta or follow their Instagram
Mm,
account or their Facebook page. And there have been a few people where they're like, okay, I'm taking a social media break because like something's going on. And
yep.
either they talk about like negativity or drama within the community, or something has happened, and it blows me away, because number I'm not in that community,
Mhm.
as far as like I don't cosplay. I don't I think it'd be cool to try it out, but I just don't have the time to do it.
Mhm.
uh but it blows me away because, and I always talk about this, is that whether you're taking hours to create the costume, I mean, you're putting in time
Yep.
and you're putting in the effort and you're getting dressed up and you're putting yourself out there. And whether it's like a work of art or a big mech suit or just a like a closet cosplay that I know people have done before,
Mhm.
it's just you're doing this, and there shouldn't be any negativity. And I know I've talked with some people where they say, "Oh, it's from outside of the cosplay community," but I also know that within the community itself, there's been, like as you say, and in your email, you had said some that there's a part that there's a cutthroat part of it
Oh, there
where
absolutely is. Yeah.
I want to be the best. Insert character here. Oh,
Mhm.
that you didn't wear the contacts. Your hair wasn't styled the right way.
Yep.
Like it just blows me away that there's it. And again, I come from back in like I'm almost 40 now, so I'm from like the when Star Trek really was the only comic conventions around basically.
Mhm.
Was is just and everyone was like totally cool and no issues, and now there's like such divisiveness sometimes in like fandom communities and cosplay communities, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is crazy, and I don't understand it one bit because, I mean, a lot of people, even with newcomers like coming into the community, I've seen people like totally blow them off or totally be rude because they're not like up to snuff or whatever. And I've
Mhm.
never been that way. Like when I meet new cosplayers, like I am so excited for them, and I want to show them the same hospitality, and I want to welcome them into the community the way I was welcomed when I was really, first really getting into it and not just kind of throwing stuff together. And I always try, and I've got a lot of photographer friends within the community too. So I always try to introduce them to people, introduce them to photographers, introduce them to other cosplayers, like really try to welcome them in because obviously with certain characters whom I love, I would love to be the best at that character just because I want to do them justice. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But there are times where I'll see someone's costume and I'll be like, they did a really good job, but this isn't quite right or that's not quite right. And for me, that's not like I would never say that to their face or anything like that. And I'm not talking bad about them. They did an amazing job and good for them and they look fantastic. But I would have done the detail like this or like that. And I think you can have constructive criticism and you can have your own opinion of someone's costume, but when you start bad mouthing them and being like, oh, they weren't good enough, or oh, they didn't do nearly as well as I did, like that's
Mhm.
where you get really negative and it's entirely unnecessary. You can have your own opinion and you can think that you're better or whatever, and you can do that, but do that quietly. Don't put that on other people. Like everybody's allowed their own opinion, but keep it to yourself and if it's negative.
Right.
And I just see it so often, and I have people in my life who were really good friends of mine, and then just we're like, now we're done now. And it's just like there's so many toxic people in the community now that they if they don't like what you're doing or if they don't like that you're getting more attention than them or for whatever reason, they'll just turn in an instant and be like, well, that's not fair, I'm way better than she is, I don't know why she's getting this attention. And I see it happening
Right.
left and right, and I'm just like, not, most people aren't asking for the attention they're getting. And you know what? Good for them for getting attention. Good for them for getting followers. Like they're doing what they love. And if people love it too, then that's awesome.
You know what cracks me up about, and I just gotta say it about the follower thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Um, so when I started the podcast, I do like hashtags to promote the different episodes. Like, and I know you just started following me, so apologies for what you eventually see as far as like the stuff. But I like on today's post, the person's episode that's coming out on Monday, Aurora,
Hmm.
who this episode's going to come out on whatever day it's going to be on Monday the 26th. So she's into like Harry Potter, so I tag like hashtag Harry Potter and
Hmm.
Gryffindor and all that. So then you'll get like these random pages,
Yep.
random Instagram people that are like friending you, and I'm like, well, that's a fake account. I don't need that, so I'll just delete it.
Yep.
But I know that some people, or like when I talk about Pokemon, like all the free Pokemon coins for Pokemon
Yeah.
Go people will add me. It's like that's not a real follower. Delete.
Yeah, no, it's definitely crazy, but there's some people who are at the point now, and me included, that we're at, and this sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm really not. But we're at
Bragger, bragger.
no, but we're at like a certain follower count that honestly, we get like a handful of people following us every day that you just never really look at them anymore. Like,
Right.
and I just hit 30,000 and I'm beyond excited about it. And I still have no idea why these people are following me. But hey, if they enjoy what I do, that's awesome. But I get like a handful of people a day, and especially like if I post a new Hinata picture or some new Naruto thing, I get, maybe 100 a day or something crazy. And so I just
Right.
don't even check them anymore. And I know like 90% of the people who follow me are just spam accounts. you
Right.
know but it's just one of those things that I'm just like, whatever, like I'm obviously not clicking their free Pokemon coins, so whatever, they can click follow if they want to, like I'm not falling for it.
That's one of the things I've started to do on Instagram with the people that I follow is I always try to make a comment to let people know like, "Hey, I'm a real person." Because you get the likes and it's always like, "Okay, it's not wow, that picture got like 100 likes or 1,000,
Mhm.
whatever number of likes." But then there's no comments
Right.
at all. It's like how I click it, and it's just like on Facebook. Clicking like is nice.
Yeah.
A comment would be nicer,
Yeah.
as long as it's a positive
I
comment,
was gonna
not
I was gonna say, yeah, not put, comments aren't always the best. I get some super creepy comments. Actually, I get worse messages, but I get some
yes.
creepy comments, and I have to like, oh my gosh, man, I get some of the creepiest messages, and I'll screenshot them and send them to friends before like blocking said person.
Uh
But like
huh.
some guy messaged me the other day, and he was like, "My pen pal died recently, and it was her last wish that you would become my pen pal or whatever." And I'm just like, Nah." Like, dude, I don't know you. But he like sent me like two full paragraphs about this like pen pal who mysteriously died, and like her last words were to find me, and he thinks it's like it's his destiny and like all this stuff. And I was like, no, thank you, I'm good.
Well, there was one I saw, and a lot of it seems contained to like the Instagram private messages,
Yeah.
which I use,
Mhm.
and that's how I found or contacted you
Yep.
initially. Some people seem to get them, or some people don't, because I guess Instagram is wonky about letting people know, like, hey, you got new messages, or
Yeah.
maybe people don't check.
Yep, because you
But
have to if you're not following someone already, when they send you a message, you have to hit like yes, they can send me a message
right,
before you can even see it. So it's one of those things I try to check once in a while, because I've met great people, through these messages, like photographers wanting to do a shoot who I just hadn't found them before, or like you wanting to do
hmm
this awesome podcast. But you have to be careful, because I've gotten like a lot of really disgustingly terrible messages.
that's what I was going to say. I saw somebody, I can't remember whose account it was under, where a person, number one, had blatantly, like, on the comment section was like, "Send me nudes."
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, I've gotten that.
what?
People
Like,
have sent me like naked pictures of themselves. Like they send me dick pics, and they're like, "Hey, like share my picture or whatever." And I'm just like, "Why would you think that that's okay? Like that's sexual harassment, bro. Like that's not
right?
cool." It's really annoying.
And that's one of the things that and again, internet bad,
Yeah.
parts of it good, but it blows me away, like that level of just shamelessness
Yeah, and
almost.
disrespect. And I don't understand it whatsoever. And I mean, I guess supposedly it's more of a guy thing, but even then, like most of my guy friends are like, no, never, that's ridiculous, like you would never do that, that is not appropriate,
Right.
that's absolutely harassment. And I've never understood it. I don't see what the appeal is. Like
That is so
sending me
crazy.
awkward pictures of your junk is going to get you nowhere, dude. It's
Right.
just going to get you blocked. That's all it's going to do.
Right. I know that there's some people who screenshot it and then track the person down, like on Facebook, and send it to like the people's girlfriends
Yep.
or wives or whatever.
I have friends who have done that before, and for me, I'm just like, you know what, honestly, I don't even want to take that much time to look at the
Right.
message. Like,
Yep.
I look at it and go, oh no, and then just click delete and block as fast as I can. I'll report their account, and that's as far as I'll go. I mean, one guy, and this may be too much information, and so I apologize in advance if this is too much, and you can, feel free to delete it. But one guy sent me a picture, and I guess he had like a micro penis, and I spent like a good 10 minutes just like laughing. I'm like, why would you send this? Like it was the worst picture. I'm like, this is not okay. Like I don't nobody wants to see anybody's like random genitalia just out of
Right.
nowhere. Just like no context, just like a random picture. And I'm just like, bro, come on. No. It's not okay. it gets really bad sometimes.
Well, this is a perfect segue into how can people find you if they've listened to this podcast and want to follow you or look at your pictures?
That's a perfect segue into that. Um, I've got a Facebook page, but I honestly don't check it very often. Just because I mean I have my own personal Facebook that's just for people I really know in real life. But I do have a
Right.
fan page, a fan Facebook page. But my Instagram is it's unique chic, but it's spelled very weird. So it's UNEEKCHIC. Unique chic, and also that's also on my Facebook. But I have my real name in front of it, so it's Carleigh Scrammy, and then unique chic at the end is my
Okay.
Facebook fan page. So I have both of those up there. I'm much more active on Instagram. I try to post something every day or like every other day or something, just because I mean I only have so many photos and don't want to reshare the same 8 photos.
Right.
But yeah, I try to be pretty active, and when people ask a question or send me a message with like a question about cosplay, I try to get back to them. But honestly, people will send me messages and just be like, "Hey," and I'm like, you know what? I don't have time to talk to strangers, and I feel bad about that. I do, but I don't have time to just carry on a random conversation if it's not, something specific. But if someone has a cosplay question like, where do you get your wigs or where do you get your contacts or anything like that,
Mhm.
I try to get back to them through comments or messages or something.
Okay.
But yeah, most of the time, just a random message about nothing, I usually don't reply to.
Right. And I think that's a pretty good standard rule to have is is no or what is it? Do not engage.
Yeah.
Do not engage unless like it's actually a question or
And I mean,
something along those lines, or
right.
thank or you can just say like I know some people when like they've put out a new costume or a new picture and like I'll say, oh, that looks great or whatever, and then like if 5 or 6 people, they'll tag everyone and be like, oh, thank you, and
Hmm.
that's pretty much good.
Yep, and I try to do that. I mean, so I can't always keep up with it because on some photos I do get a lot of comments, and I try
Hmm.
to say thank you to everybody, but um, I don't want to tag 100 people per comment. And I mean, I'm
Right.
not saying I get that many, but in some of my Hinata pictures, I get 100 or so comments, and I
Right.
can't, I can't take the time to reply to each and every person, even though I'd love to, and I do thank them for loving the costume and loving what I do. There's only so much time, and there's only so much time that I spend on social media to actually get back and reply to people. And some of the messages, people just wanting to talk, or like I've actually gotten people, like some guy asked me to prom over Instagram DMs. Yeah, I know. I thought it was great. And or people will be like, "Hey, can we go on a date?" I'm just like, "I'm married, dude." Like I post
but
pictures of
you
my
d-
husband like,
but you don't. Hinata doesn't have a ring.
"Hey, she's married to Naruto, okay?" Some guy commented, he's like, "Can I be your Hokage?" And I was like, "Nah, I've already got one, but thanks." I mean, it's great, and I mean, I a lot of my followers are really they're fantastic people, and I've gotten into conversations with them, and some of them are very respectful. But once in a while, I just get people who comment like one word, and that one word will be like tits, and I'll delete it because I'm like, my family follows me; they don't need to see that stuff. And I've
Absolutely.
gotten people who like come back and be like, "What, you deleted my comment?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not appropriate." And they're like, "I was complimenting you." I'm like, "Bro, the word
That's
tits
not
is
a
not a
that
compliment. That's
right.
just an observation." And like, duh. Like, come on now.
Everyone's got them.
Everyone's got him. Come on. Everyone's got him. Like, that's not like, good for you. You found him. Where's Waldo? You found it. Yay. Like, some people, but I mean, for the most part, it's really good, and I really appreciate people taking the time to comment or to like a photo or to really appreciate the stuff I put work into.
Right, because it's not just you dressing up and doing. I mean, you're dressing up and you're doing everything that the photographer wants. The photographer's doing what they need to do.
And oh
Like it's
man,
it's not just like, okay, here it is, dress up time. That's it.
yeah, and oh man, and I know we're gonna have to wrap up soon, but I want to briefly say cosplayers would be absolutely nowhere without the amazing photographers in our community. And they're really, I know a lot of times they're really understated. Like a lot of people are like, oh, cosplayers here and there. And honestly, man, we would be nowhere without these amazing photographers. And I always try to go out of my way to thank every person who's willing to do a photo shoot with me, because they work just as hard as we do. They have to get these amazing shots, and then they edit them, or they spend, time and money learning their craft and honing their craft
Hmm.
and taking these amazing photos and then editing them. And it's not just of one person in one costume. It's multiple people over multiple days. It's, hundreds of cosplayers and hundreds of costumes, and they work so hard, and I feel like a lot of time they can be taken for granted. But I know how much work goes into it, because my husband does photography, and so I know and I respect how much work they and how much time and money they put into this stuff. And oh man, I try to thank them every time, because we'd be taking crappy cell phone pictures if we didn't have these amazing people, the backbone of our community here.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things is like they definitely go under recognized
Hmm.
as far as like in the cosplay community. I mean, from outsider looking in,
Right.
because the person like me looks at the picture. I'm like, awesome costume or awesome character, whatever.
Hmm.
But then you don't like recognize that photographer at the same time that put their work and time and everything in to get that picture and pose and lighting and all that stuff. So yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
absolutely. I always try to tag any photographer when I repost their pictures, just because I mean they put so much work into them and so much time, and I'm so thankful to have these amazing shots. So I try to tag them in every single picture, and if I don't remember who the photographer is, I'll post something like, I don't remember who took this, but thank you. Please let me know so I'll tag you in it. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of cosplayers are really thankful for the photographers, and I don't mean to say like, oh, I'm the only one who thanks them. Like, it's not that at all. I think a lot of
Right.
cosplayers are so thankful, but I mean, I've seen people just go up to photographers and like demand photos and then like not even thank them, and that to me is just like so disgusting and not appropriate. Like, they're working just as hard as you did on your costume, you know. I think it's just important to appreciate all the members of the community and just, cosplay positivity, as dumb as that sounds.
Not dumb at all. Not dumb. You got to make the fandom and the community a positive
It
one
has to
for
be. It
everybody.
has to be. I mean, everybody's doing what they love, and if there's negativity in there, it just kind of ruins it for people.
All right, Carleigh. Well, we have certainly covered a lot of different things. Um, and I would love to have you back at a future point if you would be willing to come back, because I know that we left a lot of different fandoms that you didn't even get to mention on the table.
Hmm.
So if you're willing, I'd definitely love to get you back maybe sometime in the future.
Oh, absolutely. This was a blast. And thank you again for having me. And thank you for shooting me a message to, get me on here and tell me about it. I'm really thankful and absolutely honored that you want me to come on here and just talk your ear off.
That's what I'm here for. Well, I appreciate it. I thank you so much for your time and everything else. And everyone, go check out her Instagram page, Uneekchic, which is, I totally read it as Uneekchic, but
Everybody
that's
does.
just me.
Everybody does. And maybe I'm mispronouncing it. Let's be real here. It's definitely possible.
Well, I mean, you came up with it, so it goes by however you say it, but that's okay. But again, thank you so much. And everyone else out there listening, go check out her Instagram page, and you will be blown away by the awesomeness that is contained within.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It was an honor and a pleasure getting to be here with you.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.